Silent Hill 2 is one of the most revered and celebrated horror games ever made. I don't think that's an unfair thing to say. The 2001 PS2 classic is still talked about so much today and has seen a great resurgence in popularity in the last few years. It's iconic. I used to think Resident Evil was the best there was, until I finally played Silent Hill 2. But as the title suggests, this isn't a review of Silent Hill 2. This is me telling you why I don't want a remake or remaster. Horror games tend to be served quite well by the remaster. Just look at Resident Evil, Demon Souls, the upcoming Dead Space. It's a current industry trend that I don't mind in the right circumstances. So this video is not a demonization of remasters as a practice. This is an exploration into why Silent Hill 2 in its original form is so special, and what might be lost in a remaster for this specific title. Gonna get this disclaimer out the way now so I don't have to repeat myself throughout the video. The remaster isn't going to hurt anyone, nor will it take much away from the original product. It might deny more people the opportunity to play and experience one of gaming's greatest landmarks, but that's essentially as far as it extends. So I'd like to reiterate that this is a personal essay more than anything. Not an attack or an attempt to put anything down, just an analysis on what is so special about a game from 2001, and what a modern recreation might lose sight of. What I find so appealing in Silent Hill 2 is first and foremost its aesthetic qualities. We've seen a resurgence in the appeal of throwback graphics, the Bloodborne Remake, Cruelty Squad, Ultra Kill, Dusk, Obra Dinn, The Keeper. All these titles share a love and understanding of something from a different time, an aesthetic quality that has been neglected for years, for the better in some cases, but I think style is coming back in a really strong way to games these days, and it's something that I think really shines in older titles. The appreciation for these qualities is what makes Silent Hill 2 so special in all its PS2 glory. The technological advancements, graphical fidelity of the next generation, gaming today is pretty amazing. The Resident Evil treatment for Silent Hill 2 is far from the worst thing that could happen, but I don't think it'll make a better, more engaging game. I can only see it detracting from everything that makes it so special. The game embodies a late 90s mood. It references films and directors of the time. It's essentially a time capsule from the turn of the millennium, a capsule that I don't want opened and unearthed. Tried it once already with the Silent Hill collection for the PS3, and we all know how that turned out.
Mary, could you really be in this town?
There's a formula to these new remasters and re-releases, one that I don't think will serve the complexity of Silent Hill 2. The updated visual clarity is a bonus for lots of people. Some just can't get behind what they deem to be dated graphics, and that's fine, personal taste triumphs over all else. I'm not going to tell you that you have to like the visual qualities of an old game, but I am going to tell you that the visuals in Silent Hill 2 are instrumental to my enjoyment of it. The visuals are the first piece of the chiseled stone on the sculptor's block, an invaluable piece framed in time, working seamlessly with all the other features to create a special, timeless game. Sorry to get a little bit conceptual, I just really want to frame this as pieces working together to create something special. I don't think the beauty of the original game works without all these little blocks working in conjunction with each other. So to get back to my main point, the age of the game is precisely why I engaged with it as much as I did. Though cutting edge at the time, the effect is quite different in 2022. There is a deeply uncanny quality to everyone's face, an uncanniness that seems to run throughout every facet of the game. There's deep fog that engulfs a town, and there's map paintings and 2D assets framing the inventories and backgrounds of the game. I wonder if I'd feel such a deep connection to the game had I played it when it came out. It was just so refreshing to me in the modern day. Aesthetics alone, it's a style I love and one that I find a lot scary in general when compared to modern horror games. What I'm trying to articulate is that it is precisely because of its age and rough edges that I think the game is so successful. It's uncanny and disjointed, it creates an uncomfortable experience. Furthermore, its looks, feel, sound design, dialogue, its aesthetic qualities as a product from 2001 are what make it so engaging to me.
Is it dead? What the hell is it? It's not human.
I think it's a once-in-a-lifetime achievement. It's hard to fully put into words, but somehow all the cultural moods and references have aligned perfectly. Its mood and aesthetic is what appeals to me. So to that end, I have literally zero interest in seeing high-resolution textures on James's face. I don't care to see a new mocap actor, or to see his floppy hair groom, nor am I interested in seeing the pores on James's face. None of that will even come close to expressing what is so simply told in the original game, be it intentional or as a result of its age. It is dreamlike and uncanny, and a modern remaster is not going to capture that. There's a lot to praise in modern games. but the original is still entirely convincing, nightmarish and engaging. And it's a shame that some feel they can't engage with the original because of its age. The remasters of today seem to push this idea that we can't appreciate something if it isn't as flashy and shiny as the newest tech allows. Immersion is a word that will likely get thrown around a lot when people talk about the remaster, which I think is silly as audiences at the time were pretty much convinced. This is why I think this is an argument of aesthetics more than anything else. Unreal Engine lighting, high fidelity models, the game is going to look like everything else on the market, a market that is already quite saturated. The original game offers something quite unique when compared to these. It's liminal and uncanny. Personally, I've never struggled with getting immersed in an old game if it was good at a base level. Silent Hill, the original remake, Arx Fatalis, System Shock 2, these are all some of the most immersive games I've ever played. The remaster screams decadence, it feels callous and unwelcome, a late arrival to a powerful money printing industry trend. Dare I call it soulless? Outside of this, we know that Masahiro Ito has returned to the game to work on monster concepts. Akira Yamaoka will be returning too, but I'll touch on that in the later section. So this is certainly interesting, but I'm not sure it's anything more than a shiny name to put on the box. Without reiterating what I've said about my enjoyment of the original models and textures, I struggle to see what can be improved here. Revamped monsters aren't going to make the difference for me. As audiences, we already know the underlying influences in James's psyche affecting the world of Silent Hill. And though a new design could, in theory, be scarier, I don't think it has the power to say anything interesting. Do they plan to subvert our expectations? This is always a possibility and something that piques my interest somewhat, but given the language used during the transmission and the trailer shown, this seems unlikely. Audio is our next section, and I think it's best to start with the voice acting. There's lots of mixed feelings on it, and these feelings were definitely present during the game's initial release. That being said, I think the voice acting that exists is really important to the game. The awkward, disassociative performances are instrumental to helping build up the surreal and nightmarish layers that make up Silent Hill 2, and without these jarring and uncertain performances, Silent Hill 2 stands to lose a lot of its nuance and charm. The fun thing about this is that we already have proof of how important the original voice acting is to the base product, in that the Silent Hill 2 version that is present on the PS3. They tried, and it's not always awful, but it's definitely wrong.
And it's not just the fog either.
The melodramatic voices only serve to pull you out of the experience, which is ironic given how jarring and plain weird the original voices are.
Okay, I got it.
We had a glimpse of James's new voice in the trailer. I didn't absolutely hate it, but I'm really going to miss the originals.
Could she really be here? Waiting for me?
They bring so much disjointed nuance to the original title that I just love. Moving on, the soundtrack is virtually perfect. I think there's very little needed to be said about this. Critics of the time praised it, and today the soundtrack still retains its huge popularity. It stands as one of the most atmospheric, unsettling and immersive soundtracks to date. The OST is one of the few avenues that I actually think is safe in a remaster, especially given that Akira Yamaoka has worked on virtually every single Silent Hill game, even the American ones, and we have confirmation that he'll be back on the remaster. He's a series mainstay, and even Konami seem to be aware of how integral he is to the overall mythos of the series. This is one of the only things that I'm actually interested in seeing getting a second life, and though the original OST is near and dear to my heart, this might be the highlight of what we're actually getting out of a remaster. To touch on sound design quickly, what's important to acknowledge is that games have come a long way, so your sound design will undoubtedly get better. But Silent Hill 2 was already a game changer in its audio design. Pretty much every single review at the time makes note of just how impressive the sound is in that game. And I mean, it really is. It's arguably the game's most immersive feature. Despite that, there is the odd bit of compression on the audio, but to bring it back to my argument of aesthetics, I love what the slight grain and gravelly texture on the audio cues and dialogue adds, and most of that is an intentional aesthetic anyway. Games like Silent Hill were simpler, and I like that. There's no crafting, no leveling up, it wastes very little of your time. I pray that Bloober wouldn't put anything like this into the game, so I'm not going to waste time speculating on stuff that I don't even think is coming to fruition. From the trailer, we do know a few things that will be changed, starting with the over-the-shoulder camera. Fixed camera angles are a niche that are constantly done away with in the modern era, and it breaks my heart. It's a dramatic device that allows more direction, more control over what we see. The tension you can build up with this technique is unparalleled. To give an example from one of my favourite games, Resident Evil has the players listening for the shuffle of zombies' feet on the carpet as they make their way towards you off screen, rewarding the attentive player and scaring the one who wasn't paying attention. The removal of fixed angles does offer the player a lot more freedom in where they look and what they choose to do, and it makes a lot more sense from a gunplay perspective. So the removal of fixed camera angles are better for gameplay, but horror games tend to be less focused on that aspect. Well, some of them anyway. So while the original Silent Hill 2 didn't have fixed camera angles throughout the entire experience, it knew when to use them and how to use them. I love when developers create interesting shots in games, and I think the shift to an over-the-shoulder camera detracts from the horror narrative. The moments when the game chooses to use them makes me feel like a voyeur into James' nightmare, watching him from above or at awkward angles. The camera has a lot more power in games than people give it credit for. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about puzzles and gunplay. 5 or 6 new puzzles aren't going to change it for me, and that's not really the point of the video. To give the remaster a little bit of credit, I'd be interested to see how they tackle boss fights. I think that's the only point I'm willing to give it. One of the main points I'd written when I was planning this was, God, I hope they don't outsource it to another dev team. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I don't know why Konami want Western developers to make Silent Hill games so bad, but this seems to be the only thing we're gonna get, so. The outsourced remaster is just not for me. It usually lacks direct vision and deep understanding of the product they're working on. I mean, get the original Team Silent back together to do it and I'm listening, but under Konami's roof, that would be asking for a miracle. Given Konami's current reputation and past transgressions, I'm not sure anyone should give them a break either. It's hard to draw up much of a conclusion out of all this other than this is what I think and how I feel. At the very least, I hope it's given you a new perspective on these sorts of cash-ins. Like I said, it's not a trend I always hate, but it is starting to get a little bit tiring. Ultimately, it's about my personal feelings about the game, and how I wish games with a little bit of age got a little bit more respect. I get why they're making it, I get why some people might be excited, but it's just not what I want. And I hope this video has shown you a little bit on why the original is so special. This whole discussion has got me thinking about the remaster model again though. Is a Resident Evil 4 remake necessary? How much time needs to pass for it to be justified? Did The Last of Us 1 need a second remaster? Are these games so atrociously bad that they're unplayable in their original forms? At the very least, I know that Silent Hill 2 is the exception for me. As a piece of art, it's near perfection. I can't imagine how its themes and motifs can be improved on in any meaningful way. No less by a team of developers far removed from the original product. Let the original game continue to stand the test of time, a testament to the genius of such a talented team. The original game endures, though I do appreciate it's not as widely available as it should be. So, power to Bloober and power to anyone who's going to play the remake. I just feel that a lot of the soul of the original game disappears in the vacuum of modern AAA horror games. No new voice acting, shiny models, updated soundtrack, new perspective or gameplay changes will make me feel better about it. I was sold the first time. If you take anything away from this video, please give the original a go. It is one of gaming's greatest highlights and one I think everyone should have at some point. Next to Dark Souls, it might be one of the most talked about games. I'll finish with this. It's like when you're watching a movie. In some rare cases, the remake is better, but as a general rule, what would you rather watch? The remake or the original?